Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So if you haven't been up to date on the latest videos, we are going over the Psycho River Killer case. And today's episode is going to focus on how many times we believe that this girl, Eun-hae, tried to make sure that her so-called husband was no longer on this planet so that she could collect on his life insurance policy with her extramarital boyfriend. Now, when this story first broke, we were told that there were about 3 attempts. Well, now as they are digging through the evidence, the number of suspected attempts just continues to grow to about now 5. This girl tried 5 times that we know of and was successful on the 5th attempt. The one at the river, the one at the Yongso Waterfalls in Gapyeong-gun in Gyeonggi-do, the popular place for a lot of people to take a relaxing weekend. Well, it was hardly that for our poor husband that got tricked by this Black Widow. So in the first video of this series, it outlines what happened at the waterfall. The girl and her boyfriend are currently captured and are being questioned by authorities, but there's been a bit of a snag there because she's refusing to get a lawyer, so there's been a hiccup in the process. So right now, we do have some more information coming out of the investigations that have been carried out so far by officials and by the media. So we're going to actually work backwards in time because it's a little bit easier to grasp. So he died June 30th, 2019, just 3.5 hours before his life insurance was set to expire because they weren't paying the premiums. So if you lapse on your premiums for about 2 months, then they cut it off, so it looks like they didn't pay for 2 months. Before then, they were very spotty about paying the insurance premiums, just trying to always get to the deadline before it got cut off. So the last attempt that they're accusing her of happened just a month prior in May of 2019 when they went fishing in Yongin. Now, how can you drown during fishing, you're wondering? Well, there are popular methods of fishing that seem kind of quaint, but it always seemed a little bit shady to me. It's a little bit of an old school thing where like a lot of old men would go, and she might be familiar with this because a lot of these old men sometimes ask for accompaniment of girls in these floating little huts that seem kind of cool, but when you look at it, it looks a little shady. But they're like floating huts where you can kind of camp. So it's, what would you say, like a tiny house on the water. There's no really like electricity, I believe. There's definitely not a bathroom in there, but it's a place where like you can kind of sleep, spend the night. So like, you know, if you're getting drunk so much while you're fishing, just hanging out, like, you know, you can stay out of the sun. If you want to sleep over, you can sleep over, maybe catch the early morning, you know, nibbles on your fishing line. Well, it looks like they had a different plan, because what happened was that while they were sleeping, apparently, they pushed the husband, Yoon, into the water and tried to drown him, like holding him down, who, like, yeah, the wife and her boyfriend, and there were a couple of other people that were along on the trip that were not the friends of the husband, but were friends of the wife. And you can see this picture of them in the hut, and with the picture you see so creepy, like this menacing grin of the boyfriend. Now, why didn't it not work? Well, because during this time, apparently, it was like low tide, and I believe this is like a lake. If it wasn't a lake, it's a delta area where it would go into the ocean, but Yongin is not near an ocean, so most likely it was a lake, but it wasn't deep enough essentially for somebody at where they were to kind of fall in and not be able to stand up. So he was able to stand up apparently, and then he was just like, what the heck were you doing? And then so there was an argument, and there were witnesses who were not even of that group, but people around who now testified that they heard this argument. So apparently what happened during this argument was that Yoon was like, what the heck? Why did you just try to drown me? And she's like, no, you must have been drunk and you must have just fallen over. He's like, no, you pushed me. And then she was like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'm such a bad person then. Yeah, I tried to push you. Yeah, I'm a bad girl and I deserve to die. Like, totally reversing it, but projecting. And so when you continuously hear her language pattern, you do hear the language of a sociopath or a psychopath or someone with narcissistic personality disorder. A psychologist going with her one-on-one would be able to make the exact diagnosis, but she's definitely on that personality disorder spectrum. And so that was the attempt that failed. Now, this water theme certainly does have some sort of, resonance. The other case that they can't put a date on yet is the banana boat incident, and they are looking into that case as also a possible trial. Maybe it was like one of the earlier trials, because when you do see that whole banana boat episode where he was trying to hold on for his life, it looked like a very aggressive speed, as if they were trying to make him fall out of the banana boat and be like, oh no, what happened? Oh gosh, oh, we have to go try to find him, and then see, if something could happen where it would just, be easy for them to end it and then collect the insurance. So the banana boat is also being counted, and so that's 3 right now. And then in February of 2019, so just a few months before the fishing incident, this is a critical piece of evidence that came to light. A Telegram text message from the wife to her boyfriend saying oh my gosh, I put so much of this toxin into his soup. Why isn't he dead yet? So they had also gone again on a trip to, this time, Yangyang, which is on the east coast of Korea, a very popular beachside area. These days it's more hip now for people who want to do surfing, but it's a place where a lot of times you go, you stay overnight, you see the ocean, there's a lot of nice little cool cafes, and you eat a lot of seafood. Now apparently they got some pufferfish or blowfish, and that delicacy is toxic and could kill you if you don't cut it up the right way to avoid the toxic parts. Well, apparently she's being accused of getting somehow her hands on the toxic parts and then putting it in and spiking his dish so that he would die. Now, it seems a little bit of a juvenile move, but there have been cases in Korea where mistakenly some of those parts got boiled up into the soup and people did die recently, and maybe that's what gave her the idea. So that has been a big key point of suspicion, because that's a very odd text. She said, now this is one of the only testimonies that she has given recently in the past few weeks after she got caught and now she's in custody. She decided to write a testimony until she got a lawyer, I guess, to do this whole questioning process. But she went all at it to the judge, trying to plead her case about specifically this pufferfish incident, saying that, oh, it's just a joke. We were just joking about that. And then her main thesis line for her defense is that, oh, this couldn't have been any kind of murder attempt because we were all eating the same thing together. Now, you see that tricky wordplay, and this is where the investigators have to be a lot more clear. Were you really eating like out of one bowl? Did you distribute, servings into separate bowls? Because obviously, like she's saying like, oh, well, if I poisoned it, I would have poisoned everybody, and that makes no sense because we're all still alive. So they have to be very clear on like, yeah, but did you actually just kind of pour it into his bowl, into his serving? Because most likely, even if they had like one big bowl of and it usually comes in a soup form, if they weren't, and especially if she was saying that she squeezed it into it, I guess you can also eat it in pieces or sort of as like sashimi or something like that. But the way that they mainly do it is like kind of a bowl. And so she's kind of implying that, oh, well, I couldn't have poisoned the bowl because we would have all died. But of course, she could have put it into his own separate individual serving bowl. And she's also saying that, like, oh, restaurants don't give us this, because that would be so illegal. But those two things don't necessarily exonerate her from being able to, find a way to get her hands on some of the poison, steal it, and then try to do what she wants to do with it. So that was the attempt that prosecutors think that when they reopened this investigation last December, so about 5 or 6 months ago, in December, they were expanding the investigation, and it was let out that they knew that they had this critical message because apparently they had seized a lot of these burner phones that they were using. And so that message was on there, and officials believe that that is what prompted the wife and her boyfriend to go out on the run because they were missing for 4 to 5 months. People were trying to track them down. They stopped using any credit cards. They didn't use any phones, and they were hiding out in a newly rented little apartment. And so they think that that was very damning to them. And so obviously she spent a lot of time talking about it in her written testimony. But turns out that wasn't even the first attempt. Before that, way back in June 2018, so about a year before he ultimately died, she had punctured one of the tires in her husband's car. And how do we know about this? It's related to the fishing incident. So, the fishing incident in May, the month before he died, when he was like yelling and screaming and just being like, what the heck, what's going on, da 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 da. Apparently he blurted out, so then why did you puncture a hole into my car tire, as if like, sabotage to try to get him into an accident or something. And this was, even in June of 2018, he had been on life insurance policies up the wazoo for about 10 months. So prosecutors and then also media officials went to go investigate, was there really a car repair? And yes, there was. They even went to the body shop, and the guy remembered. He's like, yeah, the oil change, and also there was a hole in the rear right tire that he had to repair or replace. And so all of this turns out to 5 attempts we know so far of that she tried her best at, with help from other people, to try to make sure that she could most likely get her husband's assets and insurance money. So you guys, this is a total Black Widow situation on the surface. We have to see how the prosecutors and investigators continue their work to uncover more evidence and try to secure testimony from these two suspects, but it is not looking good, and it is looking extremely creepy. And this has also brought up a debate here in Korea that there has been so many problems now with insurance fraud that's getting to levels where people who are running these frauds are willing to end people's lives in order to just get money. And it's becoming more of just like where she started out, saying that she lost like a laptop here and there or something under travel insurance, and then accident insurance. Like, you know, there's a lot of Korean people who are faking car accidents to try to get some sort of insurance, and now people are moving up to their other cases besides this that we'll get into, where people are offing other people trying to get insurance money after they con them into like signing up for some life insurance. So Mr. President Yoon Suk-yeol, remember, and I have that video of how he was accusing foreigners, hard-working foreigners, of taking advantage of our medical insurance system, when no, our premiums are actually keeping the medical system here in Korea from going bankrupt. He was accusing all of the foreigners of like taking advantage. No, you really need to look more into your backyard, because the insurance fraud problem is not coming from foreigners. They're coming from Korean people who really understand how to game the system, just like this Black Widow girl had been doing for years. For years, she's been getting thousands of dollars in doing insurance fraud, and then she was just trying to step it up to the next level. So, very worrisome. What do you guys think? Make sure you comment below, and remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.